of it until I moved.
It doesn't exist.
Okay, call this meeting to order at 6:30. We're entering back into public session after being in executive session for the purpose of discussing negotiations with non-union personnel. So first order of business, public input. Seeing nobody here. We move on to student report. Seeing nobody here. We move on to continued business. So school committee policies. Mr. McGowan?
So I move that we accept the second reading of policy GBDA, appointment and notification of coaches. Does anybody want to recap, or are we?
You want to second it for the motion?
Yeah,
I second the motion.
Okay, discussion. I had nothing.
It looks like it all came out the way it was discussed previous meeting, so I see no problem with it.
Good. Okay, so discussion ended. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I move that we accept a second reading of policy GCA, compensation guides and contracts.
I second.
Any discussion on this one? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I move that we accept as a second reading policy GCR, working conditions and benefits.
I second the motion.
Okay, any discussion on this? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you, sir. Okay, opening day, new business. Sir Bernard?
Mr. Chairman, and to all of you of the committee, could not be more pleased nor proud with our opening day. Opening days. We have had a seamless start to the 2019-2020 school year. I sent you all an email, I think, at the end of the day on last Wednesday, and Mr. McGowan and Mrs. Elmore and I were talking before you all came in the room that just really we were good with our busing. Michael Connolly is working on a few maybe minor adjustments on routes and such, but nothing driven by anything in the nature of a problem, but just, it's kind of the typical adjustments we might make relative to numbers of students on buses and such like that. But, we had a wonderful day in the auditorium, the Performing Arts Center, to kick off the new year with a staff meeting. And from that point on, it really has been a seamless transition into the new school year. And I've been at all of the schools, and either Michael or Dr. Daly has joined me on those visits, and it's been wonderful. It's just nice to have everybody back. Very positive. Our schools look fantastic, both inside and out. And I publicly acknowledge the work of our buildings and grounds crew and our custodial staff, as well as all of the people in the offices who work through the summer to get our schools ready for opening day. For years I've heard, "Oh, you work in the summer? What do you do all summer?" All the years I've been an administrator, either an assistant principal, or superintendent. So yeah, that's really a busy time for us in schools to get things up and running. But our digital learning work was extensive this summer as we prepared for kind of the mass rollout of the one-to-one devices that we're all very proud to have up and running in year 3 to every student in our middle school and high school grades 7 through 12 now with a school district issued device. So there's a lot of work that goes on to ready things for that to be effective, and I think we achieved a lot in the way of the one-to-one rollout. We had wonderful orientation days in our schools, kindergarten, popsicle socials, and other like events for elementary students, and just a very, very smooth opening, and I'm very grateful to everybody that does what they need to do, and the staff and the students and the parents to allow us to kind of start the school year smoothly, and I think all indications are that we have a good school year ahead.
Excellent. I must say, I'm slightly disappointed, though, because I thought it was the start of a trend that every time you speak this year, you're going to have a marching band and introduce you.
That was pretty special.
That's not your thing for the rest of the year?
No, that's...
Oh, okay.
No confetti at the end.
It was cute. The confetti was, yeah.
No, it seemed like it was a good opening day.
It really
Very
was.
happy, and it seemed very good. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to all of you. I mean, you do a lot to support the work of the district, and it's nice to know that we can count on all of you to lend a hand when you need to, and to just be there to support and advocate for all of us. So thank you to you as well.
Okay. Moving on, the capital improvement plan. Mr.
Yes.
Connolly, are you presenting on this?
I am, thank you, Chairman Buckley. So I do have a PowerPoint presentation, so you're welcome to move your seat if that would be easier for you. But I'm gonna try to roll through this PowerPoint. Also in your packet was kind of the 5-year capital improvements plan document that we've been using, template. And the PowerPoint is essentially attempts to capture the highlights of the 5-year plan. I'll walk through. So essentially, what I thought before we focused on the large capital items and revisions to the plan that we do every year at this time, I thought I'd just look back at the FY20 approved projects. Those are all completed and underway, so I thought we'd look at that briefly. Then we're going to focus on the FY21 large capital request, which is what the CIPC really focuses the 98% of their attention on when they deliberate this coming months. And then just discuss the future capital needs. And then just touch upon the timeline and the process that this Capital Improvements Planning Committee or the CIPC goes through. And then leave time for discussion and any questions at the end. So FY20, if you may recall, we received a $60,000 allotment for technology, computer, one-to-one devices. This was part of the one-to-one rollout. You know, the vision to be one-to-one between grade 7 and grade 12. So I'm happy to report that those Chromebooks with this allotment was ordered. They received. Technology team did a great job configuring those and setting them up over the summer. And then just a short, you know, mid-August or so, a little bit after that, Patrick Daly's technology team, led by Dr. Dan Downs, met with the 7th grade parents and successfully sort of rolled out the Chromebook. So that again went very, very well. We received the $45,000 allotment for the special education van. That was delivered about in the middle of July, and that looks really, really well. It came out great, and we're already putting that into good use. Started using it this summer, actually, and we're using it every day now, and it's worked out well. The Hood School fire panel upgrade and replacement, that project got completed over the summer, and that went well, and everything looks good there with the Hood School. Some of the other projects, although they weren't part of the CIPC approved request, they were also undergoing or throughout the fiscal year 19, mainly through there was 2 school grants that we received. One was the school security grant through the state earmark grant process, through the lobbying efforts of Representative Brad Jones. So we did a variety of school safety initiatives. So we were able to not, tap the town's capital accounts and funding by receiving this grant. And through Mr. Bernard and his work leading a lot of these projects, really leveraged this $175,000 to the nth degree to get the most out of it. And we did things like new security cameras, new security panels in certain places. There's some cameras throughout each elementary school. There was new doors. There was new interior locks and exterior locks in places and throughout the classrooms at the elementary schools. And there was a lot of good work got done. And here's some pictures of what happened. We also received through the same process, the state grant, a $75,000 allotment of student computer devices. This helped accelerate the one-to-one initiative. And you'll hear a little bit later on. So for the first time, fiscal year 2020, or this school year, will represent the first year that grade 7 through grade 12 will be in a one-to-one environment, and all of those students will receive a school-issued Chromebook. And that is a few years ahead of schedule because of the lobbying of these state grants that we got these past 2 years enabled us to achieve that and accelerate that schedule. So some other things that we did do, again, that wasn't part of the capital, is there was a need to upgrade the food services vehicle. This summer, we had to kind of move quickly to take advantage of what we felt was a pretty good deal that was on the table. When we looked, typically what we have done is as we replace the special education vans, those vans kind of roll down, and the food service van, because it's not heavily used, gets kind of the oldest van. But they were operating a 2005 van that, quite honestly, wasn't going to make it through the school year based on our analysis this summer, and it was going to have to require some significant attention and repairs to get it to even pass inspection this fall. So we took a good look at the food service revolving account, and we felt that it was prudent to move forward and make a much more economical decision with a van that I think is more appropriate and will serve the department for years to come. It's a smaller kind of minivan, transit van. Here's some pictures of it. And it's really worked out well over the last couple of weeks. It's fair to say that the food service team is loving this van. So we did move forward with that. So that was purchased, and that's just another item that we won't have to worry about on the capital plan over the next 5 years, but something we'd have needed to address in some way. Another project, and again, this was an Eagle Scout project, and Christopher Naring, who's a student at the high school, did an exceptional job, him and his scout team, and he had some assistance from family members, building a storage shed at the J. Turner Hood Elementary School. Dr. McKay is very pleased with the shed. Superintendent Bernard and I have come out a few times and visited the progress of the shed. This is almost a finished product. I think it's not quite. There's still some work that is being done, but this is about 2 weeks ago, and it just came out great, and he did an excellent job.
Where's it located?
It's located right adjacent to kind of the playground area, basketball court area. The playground's kind of behind it in the back.
Okay.
But it's in a good spot, and it will certainly help, them, with storage. Yeah.
Could I add something?
Please. Yeah,
So
please.
Michael mentioned that this picture is just a little bit outdated, only a couple of weeks ago, but Chris is installing some vinyl lattice underneath, so that area that you can see that looks a little open
Yeah.
on the right-hand side, all the way around.
here.
In fact, he may have already done it. And
I think he did,
And
actually.
just today, Dr. McKay called me. He's planning a ribbon-cutting ceremony on October. Right now, we're targeting October 2nd at 1:30, but Chris really did do a super job with this project. It's
It looks great.
I mean, there's a couple, you
Yeah.
can't see them in this photo, but there's a window on the left-hand wall, there's one out the back for some ventilation, because there is some motor equipment, weed whackers and things of that nature that might have gasoline in it, so he vented, there's a ridge vent. It was a very, very aggressive project, and he really did do a nice job pulling
Yeah.
it all off, so.
Great.
It was a lot, big sponsorship by the Parents Association, too, at the hood school, I think, to help him.
Yes, they did. They did as well.
We seem to need more Eagle Scouts. We get a lot of things from the Eagle Scout
He's
project.
interested in doing another project, I understand, too, so we might be, and I've thrown a few projects, ideas his way to kind of get out to those budding Eagle Scouts, so there are some things that we have in mind.
Yes.
I'd like to see done, so.
Wonderful.
Okay, so that was some of the work that occurred this past fiscal year, and certainly it was a busy summer on getting these projects complete. So as we look to some of the revisions of our plan, just as a reminder, we sort of break down our large capital plan in these three categories. We have a fleet of vehicles that need updating. We have our technology, instructional equipment and computers that are part of the capital plan, and then we have our facility needs. So it's really these three areas. Kind of the furniture and equipment falls under small capital, so there's needs there as well. But these are the three major large capital areas. And a project qualifies if it's greater than a $25,000 cost and has a existing life or a useful life of 5 years or more. So before I get into some of the FY21 projects, this is just a snapshot, a 3-year outlook. So the CIPC asked that we submit 3 years' worth of projects, even though we kind of build a 3 to 5 year plan. I'm going to talk about 6 projects highlighted for fiscal '21 in a moment. As you can see, I've kind of pulled out a couple in the facilities category that are high-ticket items that have been part of the plan for the last 5 years. That is certainly, over the next few years, those are kind of coming up for consideration. We'll kind of revisit these and look at these as we get closer, but those high-ticket items in fiscal '22 and '23 under facilities, there's other projects there too, but the main items why those are so significant is that we would be looking at hood school boiler replacements and a hood school roof restoration project. Yes, Mr. Buckley.
Mr. Connolly, and I know when the little school roof was replaced, we were able to get some state funds to help with that, I believe. So do you think either or both of these projects would be projects that there might be state funding to help offset as well?
There would. So both projects qualify under the MSBA's accelerated repair program, which is what the little school roof operated under.
Okay.
So there would be some MSBA kind of state funding available. that we would explore at the time. You know, we would be, certainly by this time next year, if we're thinking that's a project we want to, you know, move forward with at this time, we would be filling out, I think they'd probably open it up around October timeframe. There would be the statement of interest would kick off that process. So we're about a year away, but we would be looking at it, and it is available. I think we received about 48% reimbursement on the little school roof. Certainly when you work with the MSBA, you play under their rules. They help you develop a more extensive design and project manager. There's a lot more oversight. So the overhead costs go up, which we saw. But at the same time, you know, you get a very thorough project and you do get a level of reimbursement.
And the dollar amounts here are an estimate of what it would cost without a reimbursement?
Right, so the dollar amounts here are proposals we've received from engineer companies or our roof contractor that have kind of come out and given us their best estimate of sort of either a roof restoration program or the full replacement. So if we were to add in, if we were to explore the MSBA program, these numbers most likely would change. I think what we saw on the little school roof almost is they almost kind of netted out because the overhead went up, but then the reimbursement helped offset the cost, but you came out pretty close to where you started in the end.
Mrs. Imbriano?
Would it be advantageous to do the two projects at one fell swoop?
I don't know. It's a good question. We can explore that. I think it might be challenging. Part of the reason why we've attempted to sort of space things out as best we can, not to have two high-ticket items coming in 1 year, because I think it would be a challenge even for the CIPC to come up with even their portion. Although the little school roof was a small portion, but it did impact the debt schedule and the borrowing capacity to have two high-ticket items in 1 year. But if the MSBA at the time is thinking that leveraging these two projects is a better approach, we can look at that at that time. I think from just a management and oversight perspective, I think it would be challenging for us to have two major projects undergoing at the same time at one school with potentially two OPMs, you know, two designers that you may be dealing with. But it's a good point, because if you could leverage the same project manager on two, I just don't think the MSBA program works that way.
Yeah.
But it's a good question.
It is a good question.
So that's kind of what we're looking at for the 3-year summary. So I'm going to start talking about technology and what's on the request for FY21. So we are requesting in fiscal '21 a $45,000 request to replace instructional equipment in the classrooms at all 3 elementary schools. These replacements would involve the desktop machines in the classrooms, the smart boards or interactive boards in the classrooms, and in some cases the overhead projectors in the classrooms. These units at the elementary level, many of which are over 10 years old and are certainly reaching the end of their useful life and are in need of replacement. As a reminder, the district received $45,000 2 years ago in fiscal year '19, and the plan at that time, or what we presented, was to make this an every other year request. The need is far greater than the $45,000 when we look at it, but we were trying to do this over a period of 5 years with the assistance of the capital, large capital funds, and also looking at other funds that may be available from other sources, either through state grants that come available, as well as using some operating funds that we have to continue to replace these devices, pick the high priority classrooms each year to make sure that classrooms don't go and there's a replacement schedule that's prudent, that's working. Along with these replacements, we were also, through the work of Dr. Downs, exploring bringing the latest interactive technology that may be available into the district. And what I mean by that is there's certainly more technology options out there that essentially would almost be like an all-in-one. You can certainly purchase an interactive touchscreen that the teacher would have the ability to cast from their laptop directly or through an HDMI cord connection, and that would eliminate the need for having a desktop computer in the classroom or Creston in the classroom, the overhead projector, and sort of an interactive smart board. So there's sort of an all-for-one that we are exploring. Those run a little bit more expensive when you look at the unit cost of how many classrooms you would update by leveraging the $45,000. But what we're exploring is looking at those devices that would work best for our model and what the most cost-effective device is, and then potentially piloting this type of approach in targeted classrooms with teachers that are willing to be trained and start using the technology. And if that approach works, we would pursue that, certainly in the future and down the road. But there's certainly an immediate need to start replacing some of that equipment that's really reaching the end of their useful life. Yes.
Yeah, I just think, I think it's great that we are doing this. I think we have to think ahead, but it's also just important to note, especially with this new school, we have so much ability with this school. And so if there's like boards that we need to buy, it's ridiculous if we can't do that because the town paid so much money to build this school.
Yep.
That we need to make sure that we, take full advantage of the resources that we have here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So the initial focus would be on the elementary schools. Those are the older boards. Certainly, in the future, these boards will start to be breakdown as well. Essentially, what most is at the elementary school is, quite honestly, a lot of that was repurposed boards from the old middle school and high school. Those are still in operation at the elementary schools. In some cases, those projectors have started to break down and have needed to be replaced. So we feel like we're trying to be economic and prudent by not going for the full request. If we were looking at everything, it would look something. This is one approach we could make with the 45,000. But if we were to look to try to do everything at once, this number's far greater. It's over $200,000.
Are there significant numbers of classrooms that have just non-functioning boards currently?
Everything is functioning.
Everything's functioning.
So we make sure everything is functioning. There have been times over the last couple of years where we've
Might
had
have
to
some hiccups.
use the classroom, the school level instructional equipment operating budget discretionary funds to replace the projector.
Sure.
The projector's just not working. That's it's a $500 cost to do that, but at least the board is there and they can project off it, and the desktops are still functioning.
Yeah.
But we feel like we need the assistance from the capital funds to kind of do that all at once and have a schedule to replace. So the combination of the two has been our approach. And then when available, we pursue state grant funding and so forth.
Yeah, we would be hard pressed to let anything that wasn't functioning
Yeah, okay,
go very
Right.
long
I
without.
should have asked, I should have asked that a little differently.
No, no, yeah.
I would assume that was the case,
Yeah.
but, yeah, so you're trying to stay ahead, but just barely ahead of,
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's a fair way to
Yeah.
say it, yeah. And anticipating, you can only replace the projector so many times or a bulb even, which is not cheap.
Right,
You-
that's
you-
true,
At
yeah.
some point, you're at some point where you're almost throwing good money after bad.
Yep.
Yep. Okay, so that is the focus for our technology request for fiscal '21. Fiscal '22 and beyond, we still feel a need to have an allotment for what we are calling computer device replacement plan, or the allotment of the $60,000, which we've come to sort of expect from the CIPC over the last number of years. So there would be no specific requests for these computer devices or this allotment for fiscal '21, but they would be again in fiscal '22. So there's certainly a continued need to support personalized instructions for students and teachers to replace both the student and the staff devices. As I mentioned earlier, we received state grant funding in both fiscal '19 and fiscal '20, which we feel we were able to leverage the use of that additional state grant funding in combination with the capital money that we've received on an annual allotment to take care of our needs both this fiscal year as well as fiscal year '21. But beyond fiscal year '21, we would certainly need to look at capital funding to adequately have a replacement plan schedule. As I mentioned earlier, this is the first full year that the environment in grades 7 through 12, our vision a few years ago is operating in a one-to-one environment. But going forward, there's certainly a need to have an annual request from the CIPC to help support both aging professional staff devices, mainly laptops, student devices, and then the Chromebook carts. So there's still the Chromebook cart model, which exists at the elementary level in the 6th grade. And iPad carts, which are still used maybe in the primary levels as well. So as those age out, we need a plan, and this allotment would certainly help us achieve that goal. So again, if you look at everything that we would include under computer device replacement plan, both from staff devices, student devices, the Chromebook model, the iPad carts that exist, the need is much greater. But we're looking to achieve that, really over the next 5 years, and to do so by leveraging, a variety of funding sources. But the capital funding sources needs to be a part of that equation. And the 60,000 of an annual allotment to help us continue to achieve this plan would be, allow us to accomplish what we're looking to accomplish over the next 5 years, and ensure that no one goes without, there's no classrooms without devices that they can use, or things aren't breaking down and unusable.
Will next year be the first year we get a significant number of devices back that are being returned back?
Yes,
or
it will be. So part of the reason why you're not seeing, or we need that 7th grade allotment next year is because the 11th and 12th grade devices are fairly good shape. They're fairly new, and we use the state grant funding for that.
Yep.
So those are going to be fairly new, so we feel like we can kind of repurpose those to the 7th grade.
Yep.
But then we can't keep doing that, obviously, so we need this allotment to kick back in fiscal '22. So now I'm going to move on to vehicles requests. So as a reminder, we do have a fleet of 8 vehicles in our fleet. We have the 4 special education, student service vans. We have the 2 building and grounds, pickup vans for our 2 grounds, maintenance and ground staff. We have the food service van to satellite food amongst the elementary schools, and then we have the multifunction activity vehicle, which is used by our athletic programs, our fine arts programs, and extracurricular activities. So we run an operation of 8 vehicles. The focus in fiscal '21 really is on the building and grounds department. This Ford 350 pickup truck is in need of replacement. It's a very high usage vehicle. It's used daily for a variety of purposes by our key maintenance staff and grounds crew. It's used for snow removal. It's used in sanding in the winter months. It was originally purchased in 2009. We've had to make more costly repairs to this vehicle, given its heavy usage and the sanding, and there's some rust there that's evident. And we feel like it's come time that it does need to be replaced. So we are asking for a $55,000 allotment to replace this vehicle in fiscal '21. So that's the focus in '21. When we look in the future, you may have seen in that 3-year chart, it was almost a vehicle a year. And that's kind of what we've been doing to stay on top of repairs and our needs. So in fiscal '22, however, this would be a new request. We feel strongly that we have gotten so much out in the last 6 to 8 months of the multifunction vehicle, what I'm referring here as the MVF vehicle. The athletics department, Dave Johnson and myself went through an analysis in June, and we think in the January through June, we feel like we saved about $7,000 by just operating that vehicle for half the year. This is the first year we'll have that vehicle for the entire year. We feel like we need a second vehicle, and by doing so, we feel like we can continue to save, up to $14,000 annually by making good use of such a vehicle, which quite honestly comes with a payback of 5 years. So we feel like it's a good investment. It will leverage the use of it. The athletic department would definitely see a need and a use to have a second vehicle, and then the fine arts department and the extracurricular department would love the use of a second vehicle, and they have a huge need there as well. So we certainly feel like the payback is significant. And
these can be driven by a coach or a
they can.
advisor?
You just need a valid driver's license. When we go through a little training department, there's a little user manual. We before staff use them, we kind of bring them into the van and we talk about it. They take it for a little loop around and then they're able to drive it.
And sorry. With this potentially, not potentially, but looking like it would save money on what we're spending to hire outside vehicles.
It would, yeah.
Driving, then
Yeah.
is there wisdom to trying to bump this up? The earlier we get it, the faster we're earning that money back?
Yeah, I mean, again, we're looking at what the priorities are, and our priorities first are, safety, students' needs. So that's why special education, that need came first this year. The building and grounds department we feel like that's a little bit of a higher priority, and we're doing the best we can to be economical and to spread these requests out, knowing what's in the pipeline. And I think, again, I can speak to that of what the town's needs are and what they're able to afford on an annual basis. We would love to move it up.
It might be an easier, once we have a full year's worth of,
That data will
year and a half
help.
Full of data,
It will.
it'll
Yeah.
be an easier pitch to the.
It would, and, we're seeing communities in this area have multiple use of these vehicles, and they're making it work. But it's a good question, yeah, it's something to consider for sure, absolutely. The third year is the special education van replacement. So the 2011 van is now our backup van. So we used to have the 2007 van, which was our backup, 125,000 plus miles on it. So we're in much better shape at this point in time, having the 2011 be our spare. But just projecting forward, and we'll do some analysis, maybe we can, make some adjustments in a year from now, and this can get pushed out. But right now, sitting here looking at it, we felt like it was prudent to put this a couple years in the future on the plan in fiscal year '23, just to stay on top of it. So now I turn to facilities, and this is a quick little summary snapshot. This is sort of an overview of all of our facilities needs. And as you can see, there's a high level of focus at the elementary schools, clearly, in terms of what needs to happen on a large capital perspective on our facilities. There's 4 requests, which I've highlighted in yellow, that I'll talk about in a moment in more detail, that we're going to focus on for fiscal '21. We see those of, just for a variety of reasons, being the higher priority in terms of just overall safety, staff, students, and the community. A lot of those are repeat requests that came close the last couple of years but didn't quite get funded. And then looking at the middle school and the high school, we're talking about the softball field, the wastewater treatment plant. And then district-wide, we are certainly exploring, through the work of our school committee goals, the need to explore at a higher level of detail and focus and emphasis, and really enhance our exploration around LED lighting and solar energy and energy efficiency measures. So we're looking to do that as well, and trying to do that in an economical, prudent way as well. So I'll get into that in a moment. But we think a top priority is the replacement of the hood handicapped accessible lift for $35,000. So it's very important that we have an operating lift at the school. There's been more costly repairs. It's been a little bit more, putting some more money into this lift to get it to pass inspection. We think we're okay getting through this year, but I think the time has come where the lift's reaching the end of its life and it does need to be replaced. So this would be a high priority for replacement in fiscal '21. So we do have a proposal for $35,000 to make that happen. The paving project, I'm not going to talk too much about this. I think we've talked about this a lot the last 2 years. It's a repeat request. It came close the last 2 years, did not get funded. But I think we're getting, every year that goes by, every winter, it gets a little worse. And I think we're going to see that when the time comes this winter, that this needs to be a priority for fiscal '21. It's a multi-project, scope project where it involves expanding the parking lot and parking spaces by paving this gravel portion, which is where the old playground was. The main lot, which is showing a lot of signs of deterioration, as well as the front loop. So what we're looking at with the $100,000 request, which we've added some escalators to it because the original request was about a year old, would be the highlighted blue, which is that main staff, parking lot, as well as the old playground. We think we would pick up 12 spaces. We also would work with the town engineer and the DPW director to do a traffic flow study before this, if this would get approved, to see if we can expand this loop, the parent drop-off loop, to make that a little bit easier, that flow more smoothly. So that would be a part of this request. There'd be funding available for that. And then the front bus loop, the orange, is included as well. This piece here, this section here is actually okay. And it's the opinion of the members of the CIBC that the yellow, the Barberry Road, needs to be done by the DPW. So we would try to coordinate the efforts of that work. But we're certainly feeling like this needs to be a priority for fiscal '21. This was a repeat request. The HVAC system at the Little Elementary School, and particularly in the C wing, is in need of some upgrading. We had an engineer, BLW engineer firm, come out last summer and do some analysis. And we feel for an allotment of $65,000 by working on some of the unit ventilators and the low limit discharge control. So there's equipment replacement parts here, there's some rebalancing, and there's some labor work involved here. And there's some work in the boiler room so for this, it's a kind of a 3-phase project. But we feel, under the opinion of working with the engineer consultant, that this would greatly improve the heating capacity in the C wing. And it has been an issue. And we'd like to certainly take care of that. So this is a high priority. When I say C wing, I'm really talking about these main highlighted areas. It involves about four classrooms. The music and the art room are involved. Some of their unit ventilators are kind of undersized, and they're just not providing the appropriate heat level in the severe cold days in the winter. The library, and there's some conference rooms and reading rooms that are involved as well. So that's that request. And then the final request for fiscal '21 involves the middle school, high school softball field complex. Again, this is a repeat request, but we really feel like these upgrades are necessary to kind of bring this project to completion. We've really worked hard by trying to minimize the cost of this. There was some huge fundraising activity that took place a few years ago under the, certainly Jerry Venencia and Mel Webster were involved at the time, and we were able to get the field sodded and irrigated, and it looks great. But we really want to complete the field with the appropriate amenities consistent with other athletic facilities in the district to bring this project to completion. And what that really means is dugout enclosures. So we've tried to work with the Northeast Vocational Carpentry students to lower the total cost and just deal with parts over labor, as well as it would also include the purchase of a canvas backing, just to provide some additional, wind and sun and shade, sun shelter there. You certainly get a North Reading Hornet logo. I think we've seen these in other facilities, and then of course the scoreboard would be needed and is necessary. We have the electrical there and ready for it. We just don't have the scoreboard, and the installation is, as you can see, is a significant cost. And then we also were interested in purchasing a PA sound system, for that facility as well. So this is a request. We requested this last year and it did not get funded. So the last item, which you may notice in the plan, there's no operating request or dollar request attached to this item at this time, but in consistent with the school committee goals and the budget goals, we certainly all agree that it's prudent to explore energy efficiency measures and take that to the next level. There's been a variety of work that we've done in the past to explore these measures, and we've requested these measures in the past through a variety of sources, either through the finance planning team or through the CIPC process. Last year, we had an LED lighting proposal at the little school that fell short of being funded. But we certainly feel that the district could have a significant benefit of such projects, and the potential savings of energy consumption that can be achieved is significant. So we are currently researching such projects and their potential payback that would also include alternative payment methods to achieve such projects. So we do feel that sometimes when these energy efficiency measures, either through LED lighting or solar, have come up in the past, they sort of weighed against some high priority projects that the town has that they need either the cash or the borrowing capacity to get funded immediately. That certainly we all know that there are several buildings on the town side, certainly the town hall and other areas, public safety and so forth, that need upgrades. We've had a hard time getting those funded or pushed through. So what we're requesting now is let's do the research, the updated research. We have some consultants or some companies in looking at what's available that are very familiar with the market and very familiar with the most recent rules and regulations and law changes with solar energy and municipalities and schools, and how rebate programs work with the RMLD when you work with a municipal light plant like North Reading does with the RMLD. So we have some behind-the-scenes work being done right now that we reached out to shortly after our goals workshop in August, and I think we're making some good strides. We've already given the okay for have a free audit assessment by the company we worked with a year ago to come in and re-audit some of our buildings to see what could be achieved, what the savings opportunities are. And we've reached out to some experts in the field that are researching alternative funding methods. So there's a variety of options available. So we didn't put a dollar figure to this because we think it's just too soon. We want to go through this process, work with some of the folks that we've engaged to work with, and then potentially have them present back out to either through the budget subcommittee and then back out to the committee to see what our options are. And we feel like during the budget development process, that when it really heats up in the early spring, that we may have more to share here. So that's
You're
sort of
really
the approach
teasing
we're
us with
taking.
these images of fully covered solar panels on the roofs.
Right, right.
It looks great.
So that's where we're at with this, but this is behind the scenes work happening as we speak. So very quickly, yeah, future facility needs, certainly the Hood School roof restoration is a part of it. The Hood School boilers, yes, the MSBA accelerated repair program would be on the table when these certainly get closer. The Hood modular units, we're doing a really good job maintaining those units. We keep extending the life of those units, but it's not going to last forever. So those are continue to be part of the plan. The Little School modular unit, same thing. We're doing a really good job extending and maximizing the life of those units, doing some small repairs, preventative maintenance work, tile replacements, roof replacements, and to extend the life of those modular units. But again, they're not going to last forever. So those are part of the plan. We talked about the Hood and Little School energy management upgrades. Again, there are more things that can be done if we can get some funding in terms of controlling occupancy schedules and controlling energy costs. So those are part of the plan. And then the wastewater treatment plant. We had to take care of some emergency replacements this year. You would have been seeing a request on the table right now had we not had to do that. But in the future, we feel like we should have an allotment to take care of some equipment that certainly has a 5 to 7 year life expectancy that we're finding. And these would be the membranes and the turbines and the blowers that all come with the wastewater treatment plant. Yes, Mr. Buckley.
So just two things that I'm questioning why, if they should be on there as well. So in finance planning, we did talk about some of the work that was done on the membranes for the wastewater facility.
Yep.
So is there no request on anything for that now because we've already used our?
That's right. So
Okay.
we've replaced the membranes, which would come with a cost of $27,000. So that would have qualified for large capital.
Yeah.
So because we had to kind of put that into action and do that immediately with extraordinary maintenance, we put the finance planning team on notice that we kind of had this unexpected expense so early on in the fiscal year, about 2 weeks into the fiscal year, that we had to move on quickly. We really couldn't wait on it, and
No, there's nothing
that sort
else.
of eliminated the request for next year. But 5 years out, we have a request there where we're thinking, we're going to evaluate those turbines. There's other equipment that may need to be replaced at the end of this fiscal year, or the beginning of next fiscal year. But that's only a $7,000 cost, so it just does not qualify for a large cap at the time, and it might be technically part of our small cap budget in fiscal '21. But that's why in fiscal '25, when these membranes that got replaced in July are now 5 years old, we have an allotment there, and we're going to evaluate it as we get closer to fiscal '25.
And what about you also mentioned there was some concerns about the fire equipment, similar to the Hood School that was done last year?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we did have to move on that as well, unfortunately. So we tried to leverage, and finance planning team, what also came up was the Little School, similar to the Hood School issue a year ago during inspection, certainly there was certainly issues with the fire panel and the signal going to the fire department. So we tried to do some small repairs and have the firms out to leverage the use of that to get through the year. It just didn't work. You sort of ride these systems up till they fail, and then you have to kind of make a decision to move on it. So believe it or not, we did have to move on a little bit of a smaller request, but a smaller expense. It wouldn't actually have qualified. It wasn't as larger scale as the Hood, so it wouldn't have quite qualified for large cap. But we did have to move a few weeks ago on making those repairs.
And so was the whole thing replaced as opposed to a little band?
Very similar work as the Hood. The whole booster panel, which is like the heart and soul of the system, was replaced. Not everything, not all the wiring and all the little classroom devices, which was okay. But the heart of the system, that booster panel that operates the system, had to be replaced.
So we should get credit for these.
I know. So we've put the finance planning team on notice.
Good.
If something else were to happen, we're doing our best to sort of manage these unexpected costs. There has been a few of them on the facility end this fiscal year. But, we've certainly put them on notice, and, there's resources that could be available.
So just following up on what Scott was asking about, there was, that item that was on our list last year was big enough to be a small cap item, and we ended up, it did not end up being approved, but, so is that what you're talking about? that you ended up doing in the little school?
So the little school, so we had the Hood School, the focus of the amount that was approved, that $30,000, that focus was really the Hood School.
Okay. Guess maybe I'm not remembering it correctly, but that's fine. I
Yeah,
understand
there
what
was
I
some
think it
small,
might be the HVAC that had been on last.
the HVAC,
Perhaps.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a couple, yeah.
I think they thought the little school was going to last a couple more years as well.
Right. So that $30,000, about 25,000 of that was Hood.
Yeah.
And there was a few thousand thrown at the little. And they thought by doing that, you were going to be good for a couple years.
Okay, I see.
And then unfortunately, that didn't turn out to be the case this time around. So, okay.
Michael, quick question.
Yes.
In the athletic subcommittee, a ways back, they talked about the turf field, and at some point that was going to creep its way up into these first requests. I see this going through 25. Do you know roughly where that's going to?
So that, I think, so that would be a town request.
be a town
It would be a-
request.
It would be a
Yeah.
parks
It won't be-
request.
It won't be a large capital.
Yeah,
Okay.
but it certainly would fall within these 5 years,
Okay.
certainly.
And I think you're right, that we've talked about that a number of times over the years.
Yeah.
Okay.
The good news on it is, our field, we are told, and I get this a lot through Marty Tilton, is that our field is holding up very well. I think it gets taken well care of.
Yeah.
A lot through his efforts, and plus just the general public, takes nice care of it. We don't abuse the facility, even though it gets a lot of use. Just this summer, it was again, I guess, what would you call it, Michael, refurbished when they come in? and
Right,
it's
yeah.
Kind of a
They do
cleaning of it.
maintenance to
It's
it.
an interesting process to see. I think I might have spoken about it at one of the athletic subcommittee meetings, and you replenish the rubber pellets and such, but
Yep.
it also is a machine that goes through the turf and it brings out whatever objects get in there. Sometimes jewelry, coins, all that gum, that kind of stuff. And it keeps the life, it extends the life, or at least maintains the field to a good degree. There's also there's a few sections that Marty is working to have prices. There are areas where it's particularly worn,
You can replace.
where, yeah, you can replace a section, so, maybe a football, where the punting takes place in the football, or a face-off circle, for field hockey or something like, those are areas that get a little bit worn more than just, say, the general, so.
Yeah.
Point
He's done a
being
good
is,
job.
we've taken good care of
Yeah,
it,
he
and
has.
again, yes, it's
Right.
Marty really that, I think largely is responsible for the care of it. But I think your point is well taken, Diana, that it's eventually gonna be a big-ticket item
Yeah.
that the town is gonna have to be
Absolutely.
looking to do some, significant investment on.
So if we look at, the CIPC, and this is always a very difficult process, they do ask us to submit these in priority order. So the administration, through the school committee has always taken the approach to look at what's going to have the largest educational impact. And then certainly first and foremost, student, staff, public safety being secondary. And then that's what we've always tried to do when we prioritize these. It's a hard task because in a lot of cases, all of these are a high priority. We're not looking at any, a lot of these aren't sort of nice to haves, or they're things that in some cases really need to get done. But when the administration looked at this, this is where we fell. This is certainly open for consideration. And, we looked at the technology items, the impact in the classroom and the students and the student learning. And that's where we've done that in the past as being the top priority for the $45,000 instructional technology replacements. The Hood School handicap accessibility lift, we really feel like that's a must do. We can't go another year, pushing the envelope on that accessibility lift. The HVAC, we'd love to do the paving, but the HVAC, we really feel like that's something we want to take care of and need to take care of in the near future, and certainly the paving as we look at another winter coming. The building and grounds, may look at that. It's 2009. It's approaching 10 years old. Can we get a couple more years out of that? But it's had a high usage life, and we do feel like the repair costs are just going to go up and up to keep that vehicle going. And then the softball field upgrades. So we love to do this through other funding mechanism if we could, or if we had the funding available elsewhere. But at the moment, that's not the case, and we do feel like that's an appropriate request as well. And then the energy efficiency measure. So that, we feel like that has to be part of the conversation. That's why we're putting it here. And we're hoping as the year progresses, we'll have some more concrete information to present, potentially certainly before the CIPC process is done or concluded. But, I think that the focus there is what can we do by not, tapping into what the CIPC has available, because it has not been successful over the last couple of years, and there's other funding mechanisms that we can pursue, that we're gonna ask for, and that's gonna be part of that analysis. So overall, I think we're looking at a $335,000, list of requests to the Capital Improvements Planning Committee. And it would be 6 key projects with the eye on energy efficiency measures as we move through the process. So, looking at their timeline as a refresher, we're looking for school committee approval during the month of September, early October. They've pushed out the deadline. We don't necessarily need to get the projects to the CIPC until October 11th now. It used to be September 30th, so they've given us some more time, which is helpful. In October and December, the CIPC begins to gather their information and meet and discuss. They start calling in department heads to present. The school department typically presents just before the holidays. That's generally when we get asked to come and present these items. And then January and March, there's a lot of ranking and field trips that take place. Diana and Janine, you've been part of it. You can speak to it as well. And then April and June is the approval process. So April, they look for select board approval. And then June would be the town meeting. All right. Any additional questions? So at this point, this was more to be like informative, a kind of introductory to it. We feel like if there's, we can certainly have a deeper discussion when we ask for an official vote, which we wouldn't be doing until the next meeting, the next time we're together.
Well,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. Connolly. I think that this is always probably one of the hardest jobs we do, trying to rank. Is it better to, improve the classroom education or actually keep them warm in the school or let them get into the school? It's ridiculous that we have to choose between them all. But I think you did a pretty good job with ranking them.
I agree.
So I don't think I have any real concerns with it. I mean, the only thing that I would say is we allocated as a town a lot of money to paving, and I know there's going to be a lot of paving going on. If they're going down Barberry, it's sort of ridiculous that they don't go into the school and almost do it at the same time. I hope that should be considered, because we did agree as a town to spend a lot of money on paving in the next year.
Yep.
And so I would hope that would, be taken into consideration when they're going to be bringing the equipment down the street anyways.
I find that our prioritization isn't always weighted as heavily as we would like it to be. So I think that the CIPC tends to have their own prioritization measures that they use. For example, last year I experienced the safety of the students, some of the fire, things that needed to be fixed in the schools rise to the top for many of the members versus like our one-to-one initiative, which would support sort of the educational component. So I feel like there's sometimes not always going to be like our top requests being at the top of their list.
Mr. Bernard?
I think both your points are well taken about the prioritization. As an administration, we struggle with that too. In fact,
yeah.
truth be told, we made an adjustment to the proposed list of priorities that you see tonight last Thursday. Just not quite the 11th hour, but as Patrick and Michael and I sit and we look at the needs and prioritize them, we're often, we sway each other sometimes,
Yeah.
as we go through it and talk a little bit. And so as recent as last Thursday, we proposed something. That slide looked slightly different last Thursday morning than it does tonight. So it is a challenge, because you want to do all of this and more, but at the same time, I think all of us are cognizant of what the town's appetite and ability is financially. So we try to be respectful of that as well. And I think, this is like Michael said, it's just kind of the first glance at it for you tonight, but next time you're together, we're going to be looking for you to, provide some feedback or changes or however you see fit, but we'll certainly carry that forward. So, and thank you, Mike, for a nice presentation.
Thank you.
Well, I have no doubt Michael and Diana are going to get us all $335,000.
You're seasoned at it now, right?
And Michael, I also want to say thank you very much for the work on the energy efficiency measures. I obviously, it's something I've thought about a lot, and I appreciate you guys are jumping on that. I know you guys have thought about it for longer than I have, so.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So hopefully we'll bring some good.
And I'm glad you
options.
brought that up to that point. I mean, Michael did not, as he often does not, give himself enough credit, but I can assure you, because he shares with me where his work is on that initiative, and a significant document came through just today, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Michael, this morning.
Yeah.
So he jumped on that pretty quickly after your workshop on the goals. So I think you'll be pleased with what he has gathered when he's at the point where he can share that with you.
Great.
Thank you.
I mean, I think, and just to follow up on that, I think last year in finance planning, there was a lot made about, it's important to look at putting money into paving right now because it's cheaper to do it now than if you let the roads deteriorate longer. And I just think with the same thought process, putting money in now to save money in the future is an important thing to think about. And if, replacing lights or, adding panels or something costs a little bit now, it'll save money in the future, and now's the
There's
time.
so
to
little
think
ways we
about
can
that.
impact the operating budget, and that's the one big one.
I think that,
No, please.
no, I was gonna say, I think there's always been money to pave, it's just getting people to actually do the paving. That was the bigger issue.
It seems like that was the
Yeah.
case. On the paving, and I actually thought of it as Michael was doing his presentation and introducing to you some of the projects outside of the CIPC work, the shed, the food services van. One thing we probably could have highlighted, if you haven't seen it, the work that, to pave the driveway from the Batchelder School in front of the senior housing, in front of Peabody Court to the smaller parking lot alongside the baseball diamond was done late in the summer. And it was a significant improvement. I mean, they tore the fence out early on along Peabody Court, which was very unsightly and just served to do nothing more than just collect leaves and trash. But the work that, if you haven't seen that access road, it's much improved, and I think was a nice project to get done through the building project, the secondary school building project. So it took a little while, but it was done. It was done, and it looks good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So one question for you, Mr. Bernard, we did have the in-district enrollment numbers in our package as
Thank you.
well.
I'm sorry. Yes,
wanna speak
on
about
opening
that?
day. Yes.
I mean, I don't know if there's much to.
No, I think, I think we, I think that there's nothing here to call out, I don't think in any significant way. By the way, I have provided the packet to the transcript, so I'm sure you'll see some information about that in the paper either this week or next week. But our enrollment, trends show that our enrollment is in a little bit of a dip. It's not anything that's unanticipated. It's not anything that we attribute to anything other than just a population decrease. But our current enrollment, as of the start of the first day of school, September the 4th, was 2,407 students. And again, I don't see, there's no anomalies here. I think Michael's projections were pretty darn close to where we fell. I think there was a slight increase in anticipated number of students in kindergarten. Michael, am I
Yes,
correct? I
that's
think it was the
correct.
kindergarten number only, but otherwise, our population at the elementary schools is at 1,121 students, 540 students at our middle school grades 6, 7, and 8, and we did have that unusually large class in class of 2018 at the high school, so we're down a little bit at 746 students, which, if you remember, those of you who have been around a while, when we took on the task of building this school, do you remember what the population projection was? Agreed upon with MSBA, 740, very good. Yes, it was 740, so you see we're right back there. We had that one kind of little bubble that came through, but it's pretty spot on to where we expected we would be.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I think if you take out the pre-K and divide it by 13, it looks like our average class size is about 180, which is pretty nice. And
It's a pretty, that's
yeah,
pretty right.
and I think, and the only thing I would comment here also is I appreciate that the school committee for the past years has prioritized trying to keep class size, especially at the elementary, really manageable. And I think that really does have a great impact on the education that everybody receives. And
No
when you look through it, especially in kindergarten through second grade, third grade, we do a really good job of keeping class sizes manageable or very, I mean, again, we'd love to be even smaller, but I think we do a really good job of keeping it there. So I think that's great.
Agreed.
Okay. So, moving on to school committee policies, part 2. Mr. McGowan, would you like to make a motion and then we can have a discussion?
Sure. I move that the committee accept as a first reading policy, changes for policy GCP, reinstatement sick leave benefits.
Do you have a second?
I second.
Okay, discussion.
I believe we just were clarifying some language about the timeline. It gets really, it could get, depending on the situation, what constitutes a year versus a school year versus 12 months. And so we were trying to make it clearer, at least from a policy standpoint, if not a reality standpoint, what the district and the superintendent we willing and able to do in this situation.
Yeah, specifically, the spirit of the idea is that if a teacher works with us and then leaves for 1 year and returns, that they should be entitled to have their sick time accrued reinstated. But the way it's written, if you read it literally, which is the purpose, before we made the change, if they were to leave in June and then be hired back for September, that's in excess of a year, with a year in between. And thus, even though that's really who we're talking about, they wouldn't be eligible.
Right, if they left in June of 2018
Right.
and were hired in September in 2019, it's really just one school year in between, and
But 13, 14 months, and,
yeah.
and thus we wanted to clarify that's who we're expecting would get their sick time back.
Right,
With the
exactly.
spirit of the policy.
yeah.
Any comment?
Makes sense.
My only thing was, I didn't know the equivalent. I didn't know if it could have just been even just, or one academic year, or one school year. I don't know if you needed the equivalent of, but
We went
whatever.
around and around, and.
Whatever it is.
We think we all, yeah,
That's
it's,
fine, whatever, I mean.
Yeah.
And
Here it
the
was-
severs all official connection
It
seemed
could be a
little bit
split
harsh.
because of the summer.
yeah.
That was,
Right.
that was what we were trying
It
to.
was really
Yeah.
yeah.
That's true. Okay, I know. So, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. There. And then the salary checks?
I move that we accept for first reading policy GCAF, salary checks and deductions.
I second.
Yep, sorry.
I second the motion.
Discussion on this one?
And,
Is it revised or reviewed?
this,
This is a review.
Review.
I'm sorry.
This is just a review.
This is just a review, yes, I'm sorry.
There's a couple changes.
And we just added the part-time to the full-time,
Correct.
Okay.
because that's the reality.
You could have just removed both, and just said employees.
We could have done that, but we didn't, so.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Had to say it.
Scott, we could put 3 people on the policy.
Okay. New superintendent's contract. So, I have to speak on this one. So I'm happy to announce that we were able to come to terms with Dr. Daly to be the next superintendent of our schools. It's been, I have to say, it's been a very pleasant and good experience getting to know Dr. Daly a little bit through the conversations. I think that every time that I speak with him, I believe more that we've made the right decision about the next hire for this district. I think he's really, even through going through the contract, like when I would say, well, what do other people in the other districts make right now? He would come back right away, the next meeting and have done a lot of research to try to put out what that is. And I think it's fair to say that we came to something which I think is in line with what other superintendents are making in other districts, but in truth, I think Dr. Daly's really helping North Reading, because if we were to go out and try to find somebody, right now, a lot of districts are paying quite a bit more than we are going to be paying him for the first year. And so I think he really wanted to work in this district, and we really wanted him here. So I think, both sides are very happy with the agreement. Just to highlight the, just very, an overview, and just so if anybody wants to see it, the contracts are available. I think they request them from the superintendent's office. But in terms of the general terms, it will be a 3.5-year term because it is beginning on January 2nd. And so we'd like the contracts to all align with, the July through,
July 1 through
June
June 30th.
year. And so it's going to be a 6-month contract and then 3 one-year extensions beyond that. We're going to begin with a salary of $170,000 with 3% raises for each subsequent year. And so I think that's the basics of it. In terms of the contract, the language was actually quite easy because the current superintendent and the current assistant superintendent have very similar contracts. And so there were a few minor differences in terms of, number of personal days, things like that. But, in all in all, it's a very similar contract to what we currently have with the superintendent and very similar to Dr. Daly's current contract as the assistant superintendent. So, so that's the update. I don't think, I mean, does the committee have any questions on?
I'd like
any
to
comments?
commend Mr. Buckley on putting together this agreement with Dr. Daly. I think he did an excellent job.
Thank you very much.
Need to take a vote.
So, yes. So we do have to take a vote on this, so I will make the motion to approve the superintendent's employment contract for Dr. Daly.
I'll second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. So,
Scott?
I was.
Scott made the motion.
I think I can.
Well, if you
Don't usually
can't,
do
then
it, but
I'll
I
do it.
negotiated. I figured it was appropriate to do it, so I moved for it. And now moving on to the next one, Mr. Bernard, are you going to speak about this, the guy named Michael Connolly? we're talking
I
about?
would. I think you might have all bumped into him somewhere along the way. Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, I would like to recommend to you that, given the action that you just took on the appointment of Dr. Daly as the next superintendent, of which I could not be more pleased nor proud to support his candidacy, and I thank you for electing him as the next superintendent. I have no doubt he will do an outstanding job. Given that action, it leaves a vacancy in the position of the assistant superintendent. And so Dr. Daly and I have jointly come to the point where we believe that it is appropriate and in the best interest of the district to recommend that Michael Connolly move into the position of the assistant superintendent in title and in a different mode. It would be an assistant superintendent. My recommendation to you is an assistant superintendent for finance and operations. And I would like to recommend to you, if you see fit, that be something that is enacted immediately upon I'm certainly happy to serve as the designee to write the terms of that contract with Michael as an amendment to his existing contract. But I think Michael's body of work over the last 6+ years now, he's into his 7th year here in North Reading as our Director of Finance and Operations. I think his body of work speaks for itself. Case in point is his presentation this evening to you all on the large capital plan. Michael is a diligent worker. He's very loyal. He will, investigate to the nth degree any issue that is put before him with such accuracy that I continue all these years working with him, whether it was as the high school principal or the superintendent, I continue to be impressed with him beyond any measure. I think as I leave on January 1st, and Patrick ascends to the superintendent's position, I think it's important for the district, and I think it's important for the new superintendent to have full confidence in someone that can work alongside of him with a level of trust that I have enjoyed in both Patrick and Michael, and also a level of efficiency and confidence that is in the best interest of the district. So it is my hope that you will look favorably upon this recommendation, which I make to you jointly with Dr. Daly's full input on that. Should you decide to do that, and I hope that you will, I think an obvious question then becomes, well, what happens then with what we have come to know as the assistant superintendent position in the one that Patrick Daly has held? And I think what we would like to do is to, and again, Patrick's going to be in that job for the next few months, and I'm certainly going to be here for the next few months, but we would like to start to transition into having the possibility of some in-district people assume some of the responsibilities that are associated more kind of in the curriculum instruction and assessment world of the assistant superintendent as it exists now, and then look to go forward with a full posting for a like position sometime in the spring when we think it's a more prudent time to be looking for someone to either come to our district from another district, or if it were to be an internal candidate, it just seems like the more logical time when someone would start their new work on July 1st, rather than making a mid-year transition like I've done. But we think that there's a lot of change coming up, and we think that this is the smart thing to do to avoid any kind of a hiccup along the way in the winter months. So,
One clarifying question.
sure.
Would the person assuming Patrick's position also be an assistant, or just simply the director of curriculum and technology?
In this school year or next school year? because I think there could be two different answers. So I think what we're anticipating might happen, and again, it is somewhat speculation, but we think that there is the potential for some interest for some internal people that are currently working in our district in other capacities, to take on some additional responsibility and take on some of those larger tasks that Patrick would normally be doing if he were going to be in the assistant superintendent role. So I think that's what we're thinking. That could be one or two people. We truly don't know until this is fully enacted, if it is in fact enacted under your direction. But to answer your question, I think that's what we're anticipating may happen for, say, the January 2020 to June 30th of 2020. What I anticipate would happen in the spring, as Patrick and I have talked about it, is that the posting for the kind of the full-time permanent position could likely be that of an assistant superintendent designation. And we think that there is some value in that, because it makes it more attractive to people that, to have the elevation of an assistant superintendent title to the work. And we think as a district, it's appropriate, given our size and given the nature of the work that needs to get done, to have someone as an assistant to the superintendent to be able to function at a level of not so much authority, but to have the gravitas, if you will, of the title of an assistant superintendent that, has the full confidence of the superintendent. And in having that, when that person is leading an initiative, it has with it a certain level of, like I said, of gravitas that I think is important for us to be able to do what needs to get done. We're not a top-heavy administrative district. We never have been, but I think it's time, for some of the reasons that I've stated to you, all of you, that that would be probably a recommendation that you might see Patrick make to you in the spring, is that it have an assistant superintendent designation to it. Excuse me.
See, that passed 5-10.
Mr. McGowan?
So just if I may restate what the thoughts are, for the period January through June of 2020, you're offering, Patrick is thinking about offering an opportunity for those individuals who might be thinking along those lines to explore some of those duties, and also that Patrick gets to explore their work in those areas as well.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Yep, I think that's fair.
As a lead up to whatever decisions he might make on what he
Correct.
wants to post. And
I think there's an opportunity both ways.
Yeah, it's a
For
two-way
someone to kind
opportunity.
of put their toe in the water, so to speak, and see. But yeah, clearly his intent is that this would be something that's done internally only.
For sure, yeah.
Yep.
So I have, as I often do, I have lots of comments and questions, but I'm going to start with a couple of specific questions. So would Patrick's title change for the next 6 months or the next 3 months, or whatever, because
No.
so he'll be the assistant superintendent and Michael Connell will be the assistant superintendent of finance
and
and
operation.
whatever.
Correct.
Second, I just want to clarify that because Michael is the financial person, the contract would still, even though he's an assistant superintendent, his contract would be with the school committee, would be signed by the school committee,
Right, my belief.
as it is currently.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Okay. And so that was something
I think my
important.
language in my report to you was, that's because
Right,
that's
yeah, I
what's
think-
typically happened.
Which is
I've
why
been
you're.
I've been the designee, so to
correct.
speak,
Yeah,
right.
yeah, exactly.
I agree.
But ultimately, I would do the so-called negotiation, the contract development, and then what I've done is I've called the chairman to say, here it is, and then you meet with the person, in this case, Michael, to seal the deal, so to speak.
Perfect, thank you. And then, so I guess my comments are in 3 different areas. So first, I just want to say I appreciate, Dr. Daly, I appreciate Mr. Bernard, and Michael Connolly, everybody for their thoughtful approach to how to handle this. And I think at the end of the day, different things could have been done, but I think the priority was always not impacting students. And I appreciate that, because you don't really want the district changes, administrative changes, to be impacting student learning. And I just think that the plan in place, while maybe it's not perfect, you'd love to have somebody just step into the role and, be able to go. I think overall everything's been done with an emphasis on not interrupting student learning, and so I really appreciate what everybody has done for that. Yes.
Could I add to that?
Of course.
I think it's important for the staff, too.
Yep.
and while I've prided myself my whole career that the decisions we make are in the best interest of students, that's always got to be at the top of the list. But I think in this case, with the change of the district leadership, that it's staff too. I mean, I think the staff has to have a level of confidence on the level of stability that they're going to have, for the people that they're going to be working with and for. And so I think this achieves that, in my opinion, as well.
Great. Second comment is, Mr. Bernard, I think that we have said many times now that we have a great administrative team, and I think a lot of that goes directly to you. I think, the work that you did with Dr. Daly to prepare him to be able to step into your shoes has been important. I think, working with Michael has been important, and I think while you have great people working with you, I think they are a reflection of you as well. And so I just
Thank you.
thank you very much for everything you've done to help train the people. And I think it has been an important part. I know that training people and trying to have people there to step up when you need it has been an important part of your tenure here. So I think I want to just thank you for that piece. And then this is really about Michael, and I just think we should all comment on how great we are to have, how lucky we are to have Michael. I mean, when I started coming to school committee meetings, I just thought you were the most knowledgeable person I'd ever met. I just think every time I talk to you, you know exactly what, every number means, where it comes from. I've never seen you lose your temper. I've never seen you get irritated. I ask a lot of dumb questions, and you've never become irritated at any of them. I think part of the reason that you make somebody an assistant superintendent is to keep them, and to try to keep the best people in this district. And I've always believed that, teaching, education, school is about the people. I think every job is about the people, and if you have the right people, you do everything you can to keep them. You never want to regret that you lost somebody to another district over a title, over a salary. And I just think we are so incredibly fortunate to have you with us. And so I think you deserve the promotion. I think, I fully support this move.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Well, I think what you said is well taken. I don't want anyone to misread anything, though, because I've worked in education a long time. Michael never gave any indication that he was looking to leave North Reading. I just don't want anybody to misread what was just said. Patrick and I went to Michael, and so I just want that to be clear.
That's true. Well,
I think this is less about keeping Michael here than it is about, although that's important, it's more a recognition of his work and talents. And I think I want to be clear on that, because I don't want it to be misperceived.
And I think that that is the appropriate way to keep people here that you want, is to
I agree.
recognize their talent.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, I think when I was meeting with Patrick for negotiating contract, I mean, I think he cares a lot about the administrators here, and I think it was important for him to have the right people around him.
Absolutely. It's vital. It's vital.
So I think we have to take a vote on the appointment.
I
There's a motion.
would appreciate that.
Okay,
Thank you.
can we have a motion
I
to
would
accept?
like to make the motion, as it is genuinely deserved.
A motion for?
Mr. Connolly to be Assistant Superintendent of Finance and
Operations.
Operations, thank you.
And I second that motion.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
See what 5 years of being told, 6
Thank
years
you.
of being
Thank
told.
you very
what a
much.
Good job you did.
Right?
Yeah.
It's well deserved. Congratulations.
There we go.
Thank you all very much.
Okay. Moving on, no minutes tonight, no budget update. Staffing, Mr. Bernard?
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you. Yes, so I have for you an updated sheet of new hires who have come to our district following your last meeting, which was August 26th. And I am pleased to welcome to you, I'm pleased to introduce to all of you and welcome to our district Jillian Fleming, who is serving as a general kindergarten paraprofessional at the Batchelder School. Nicole Fortin at the Little School as a special education paraprofessional. And at our middle school, Marie Falaska, a special education paraprofessional, and Lauren Johnson, who has started her work here as a special education teacher. Again, those last two are both at our middle school.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you. Bids and donation. We're back on. Mr. McGowan.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the committee vote to accept with gratitude a total donation of $100 from Michael and Deborah Regan for the Charles E. Jones Educator Excellence Award in memory of Charles E. Jones, former middle school assistant principal.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a $160 donation from the J.T. Hood Parents Association to support an Eagle Scout project to build a school storage shed at the Hood School.
I second.
And for discussion, I assume this is the shed that we saw
Yes.
earlier
Yes.
tonight? Wonderful. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $900 from an anonymous donor to help support high school athletic financial assistance.
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude assistance with spreading 110 yards of playground mulch at the elementary schools with a Bobcat valued at $1,000 from Michael DeStasio, of M. DeStasio Excavation.
I second.
Any discussion?
Could I speak on that?
Absolutely.
I don't know
Go
if
ahead.
it is, but this is a unique one. And Michael DeStasio graduated from the high school in June, as the memo says. But, this was a really nice, this is the second nice gesture that this young man put forward to the benefit of the school department. Last spring, unsolicited, he wanted to give back to the school department. He reached out, did some work at the baseball field with the installation of some stone dust walkways for our dugouts. The boy can work a Bobcat. He is a legit contractor at a very young, I don't even know if he's 19 yet, but I know Michael well. I've known him for a number of years at the high school. But then he again saw the pile of bark mulch that got delivered to the Batchelder School, driving by, and he reached out to Mike Parrow, one of our buildings and ground staff, about how he could help, and he showed up with his Bobcat and helped at the 3 elementary schools and saved a significant amount of time and money, really, because he donated of himself to do this with his equipment. And it would have taken our people, our 2 guys, a long time with the equipment they had to do this. It was just a really nice, it's more the gesture, I think, that
Yes.
I was most impressed by, so.
Could I make one suggestion then? I mean, I think in our meeting this summer, we talked about trying to recognize people that do go above and beyond. Perhaps if this is something that's recurred a couple times, maybe we should invite him to thank him.
I'd be happy to send him a note.
If you wouldn't mind, that'd be great. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Unanimous?
And finally, I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $2,750 from the E. Ethel Little Parents Association to defray the cost of buses for the 2019-20 school year field trips.
Have a second?
I second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous.
Chris doesn't approve of this one quite.
No.
Okay, subcommittee update.
Just
None at
wanted
this
to make sure we did
time.
the right thing.
Subcommittee schedule. The following subcommittees are all going to be at the superintendent's conference room. Finance planning team, September 13th at 8:15 a.m. Athletics subcommittee, September 18th at 12:30 p.m. Fine arts subcommittee, September 25th at 2:30 p.m. Policy subcommittee, September 25th at 3:30 p.m. And then at the NORCAM office, the NORCAM Board of Directors meeting on September 26th. Administrative report, Mr. Bernard?
Mr. Chairman, I have nothing additional to add. The only thing I would comment on is for your knowledge and for the community is that Dr. Daly and I have been meeting, and we will continue to meet very regularly as part of the transition for him. We had a meeting today, as a matter of fact, and we have hard scheduled time each week going forward until I retire. And so I think it's important for you all to know, and for the community to know, that I'm spending time with him and reviewing with him some of the things that I'm hoping will be helpful to him and answering his questions. So I'm offering that to you just so you are aware. Okay.
Thank you very much.
And I will certainly remain available to him after January 1st as well.
All right. Yeah.
Should he need it.
No correspondence at this time?
There is no correspondence, sir.
Future business, we have a meeting back here on September 23rd at 6:30 p.m. We're going to meet for town meeting. Are we going to meet at 6:30?
So you could maybe we can schedule something, you and I can talk maybe about how you might want to handle that meeting, but typically we would meet before
At 6:30 or something?
It could be 6:30,
Okay.
you know, in a pre-meeting, but I'll send a communication to all of you.
So we'll have a meeting on October 7th before town meeting.
Correct.
And then October 21st, is that just the overflow meeting for town meeting, or?
No, that shouldn't say town meeting.
Yeah, it
That
should
should
be
say regular meeting.
It's a regular
Yes.
meeting?
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that the one that Mr.?
Yes, yes.
There will be no
Oh,
overflow
Vasily
town
only.
meeting in October town meeting.
Boy, if there is, then something happened.
Okay, another meeting at, are we going to say 6:30? Is that meeting
Yes.
October 21st at
It'll be
6:30?
October 21 at 6:30, and then October 7, you'd have a 6:30 too.
In this, and the,
Superintendent's conference room
okay,
On the 7th,
on the 7th. Yep.
21st here.
no, and then this 21st would be here,
In
or
this
is it one of the?
Yep.
Okay,
Nope. it'll be
Perfect.
here.
so, finishing our agenda, can I have a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, unanimous. Thank you all.